Hello, BookTube. I've got some mail for you today on a gray, overcast, stubbornly cold day in Boston. I was expecting relief, but the dog walks outside are stubbornly cold. But a lovely day all the same. A wonderfully productive morning. Just one of those mornings where where the items on your to-do list just sort of step forward and say, do me next. So that sort of thing. And I also had a chat with William Gallagher from the YouTube channel 58 Keys. Uh, It'll be going up with today's batch of videos. You're gonna love it. I hope you're gonna love it. It was a blast to do, just a blast. Two old warhorse writers just having fun talking about writing. I have a feeling that you're all gonna enjoy it. Just wonderful day so far. Shouldn't take such things for granted, and I try not to. Even at the sexy age of only 28, I still try not to take these things for granted. So let's look at the mail. We have only one box. But a bunch of packages. We could see what we could see. Those of you who are perhaps curious about the minutia of how I deal with review copies here at Hyde Cottage, I've been belly aching for a while now, for days, that I really need to take my work bookcase in hand. I've got one bookcase that's not all these old things. It's review copies. It's advanced copies from publishers, and I organize them. A lot of reviewers that I know don't. They just have them in piles. I don't know how they do that. I'm not the particularly organizational-oriented person, but I could not work if I had it in the piles that I've seen in some people's just random. I've got a table in the hallway that I just pile these things on. I can't imagine doing that. I organize mine by month of release down the bookcase. But the top shelf of the bookcase is the current month. And of course, that's tomorrow. And the current month is organized. Not only are those only the books from that month are going to be there, but also from left to right is going to be an ascending date of release, because a quarter of those books will come out on the first Tuesday of the month, and then a quarter will come out on the second Tuesday. Although I notice the second Tuesday of February is a very crowded day, and then the third, and then the fourth. And I'm not meaning that I'm going to have my reviews done, on the day of a book's release. I'm just concerned with something that I've mentioned on this channel before, which is if you're going to run a negative review of a book, it's a little bit ungentlemanly to run that negative review before the book has a chance to, so to speak for itself, before it can be seen by readers itself. And since a lot of the reviews that we're talking about for February are going to be on Open Letters Review, which is my own journal, so it's a journal where I'm one of the editors. I can write a negative review instead of going through the hoops that you have to go through these days to write a negative review in a mainstream journal. It's almost impossible to do. Almost impossible. It's a service to the readers. I firmly believe that. But almost any book editor in the world is going to, if a freelancer or a reviewer of some kind comes to them and says, I've got this book and I want to savage it, or I want to be, if not savage it, I want to give it a mainly negative review. Almost invariably, that book section editor will say, well, I'd rather bury it in silence, that's the phrase they love, and just use our valuable and very limited space to write about something that we can praise. And when it's somebody else's show, you can't argue. For a little while there, at a couple of major venues, I knew the editor well enough so that I could actually respond and say, well, that turns our whole section into a cheerleading, and surely you don't want it to be that, right? But even when I did make that argument, the answer was still no. But on Open Letters Review, I do run negative reviews, and that means I have to pay attention to release dates at least that much. I mean, if I praise a book, sure, then no one's going to complain about praise. No one's going to complain about that, except every once in a while. For authors, we're the only people in the world who complain about positive reviews. but publishers, editors aren't going to care about that. It's a negative thing. It would be totally not cricket for me to savage a book down to the molecular level on the 2nd of February when it doesn't come out until the 26th of February. So I do have to pay attention to the dates, and I had to do that. So I don't know what kind. It's all neat as a pin right now, and this mail haul is going to ruin it. So what have we got here? Oh, okay. The first thing is two. I wonder why there were two sheets in here. There are two things here. Two from Europa Editions. So let's see here. Let's read the right sheets for the right ones. This first one comes out in late February, so there goes my neat as a pin arrangement right away. This is by Irene Graziosi, and it is called The Other Profile. And it's a debut novel from a young Italian novelist. How wonderful. It's a darkly funny story of a friendship that is unraveling, as well as a powerful examination of the disruptive impact of social media on our lives. I trust I'm not disrupting you. No, and I also trust that you don't pay attention to any other social media. Steve is your all. There is no you, there is only Steve. Once an ambitious and promising student at an elite university in Paris, aren't they all? Oh no, that's elitist. Maya is now 26, living in Milan and stuck in a dead-end job at a cafe and a dysfunctional relationship with an older man. Until one day her life seems to change, thanks to a friend's recommendation, and despite not knowing anything about social media, she is hired to work for Gloria, an 18-year-old influencer with millions of followers. Slowly, she understands that her disdain for the world of influencers is precisely why she was chosen for the job. As an outsider, she can keep Gloria grounded, tethered to reality, remind her that the image she projects online is only an illusion. As the two women weave a complex and intense relationship, well, it can't be that complex or intense, Inky. Sorry if that's the old literary dinosaur in me, but this is 70 pages. But still, this is 70 pages. And if you're going to do complex and intricate in 70 pages, you're going to be Guy de Maupassant. Are you Guy de Maupassant? No. No, you are not. However, it is Maria's life that starts to unravel. Exposed to the tricks and hypocrisy of social media, Maria is increasingly unable to avoid confronting the lies she's been telling herself. The closer she gets to Gloria, the more porous the boundary between their feelings and identities becomes in a dangerous game of mirrors that threatens Maya's very sense of self, hence the title. Oh, that does sound good. All right, well, this is February 20th. February is not like January was for the U.S., for my books anyway. February, I'm buried in books. So even though it's only the 20th, I probably won't get to it for another couple of weeks. And then this next one, I'm assuming this is translated. Actually, the Graziosi book might have been translated as well. This one is translated from the Japanese by Hayden Trowell. This is Goodnight Tokyo by Atsushiro Yoshida. And this is the English language debut. So this is still a debut. I just don't know if this is the author's first book. Maybe we'll learn that. Set over several nights between the hours of 1 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. in and around Tokyo. Oh my, I've been there. This mind-blowingly constructed book is an elaborate, energetic fresco of human nocturnal existence in all its mystery and enigmatic literary mix of Agatha Christie, Teju Cole, and Hieronymus Bosch. Okay, well, all right. It's not that big a fresco. Okay, it's 70 pages long. There's only so much you can do in 70 pages. I trust that we're all going to agree on that. I don't think there's going to be any disagreement on that. You could do a vast panorama, a huge sprawling fresco of human life late at night in 70 pages if you were Tanizaki. Are you Tanizaki? No, you're not. But anyway, on this journey through the labyrinthine streets and hidden corners of one of the world's most fascinating cities, everybody is searching for something, and maybe searching in the wrong places. Elements of the fantastical and the surreal abound, as they tend to do in the early pre-dawn hours of the morning, yet the settings, the human stories, and each character's search are all as real as can be. Get ready to stay up all night. Okay, fantastic. All right, so this thing comes out in July. So I don't need to worry about this at all. I can just chuck this way at the bottom of that bookcase. Right. All right. So let's check, just before we move on, let's check the Graziosi. Is this also translated? I'm assuming that it is, since also all the blurbs are from Italian venues. Yes, this is translated from the Italian by Lucy Rand. Okay, so 2 works of translation right off the bat. Fantastic. All right, let's move on and see what this next one is. What is this? Oh, goodness gracious. All right. Well, we don't want to argue with books. We don't want to do that. If we can avoid it, we don't want to do that. This comes out, oh God, this came out on the 23rd. So, all right. So this goes right to the top of the pile. This is a January release. There isn't a January shelf on my work bookcase anymore. that's gone because January's almost gone. This is by Chris Anderson, and it is called Infectious Generosity, the Ultimate Guide to Worth Spreading. And if that subtitle didn't already inform you of the fact, the cover goes on to make sure you know that Chris Anderson is the head of TED. Let's see here. This comes out, all right, we already mentioned this is out already. This is like getting to me. As the curator of TED for over 20 years. Good Lord, that's a lot of concepts this guy has dumbed down. Chris Anderson has seen firsthand how ideas can spread. Through the power of the internet, he has helped the world's boldest thinkers share their most uplifting and world-changing concepts. Well, that's interesting. Shame he couldn't have booked any of them. With this book, he encourages all of us to harness the internet as a force that brings people together instead of driving them apart. Through a combination of inspiring stories, cutting-edge psychological research, and practical guidance, this book serves as both a manifesto and a playbook for embarking on a journey of generosity. I don't know Chris Anderson at all, but I'd be willing to bet a Boston cream pie that he has not given anything to anyone ever in the last, let's say, 10 years, including children, including gifts to his children. Anyway, this heartwarming book, oh my, it's going to warm parts of me. I don't know if my heart's going to be involved. Argues that by rethinking generosity in this connected era, we can shape it into a force that's spread across the world. Infectious Generosity will be published on January 23rd. Yeah, was published on January 23rd. And we hope to engage as many readers as possible to spread this important message. Okay, very strong effective altruism guides vibes off this book. Very strong. Of course, there's nothing legitimate, nothing effective, and nothing altruistic about effective altruism. So this book is going to have to pull away from that shore right away. But I'm going to know how successful it is at doing that right away as well, because I'm going to read it tonight. I only have one of these big vacuum press things that comes off the assembly line. I guess because a machine can do it, you don't need a human to do this. You can just break that down as much as possible. It's not always easy to do because the inside of these things is adhesive. So you... at least it's not bowling everywhere. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. All right, well, this was done by a machine because this was shipped to me from a warehouse rather than from a publicist. This is not a publicist who has a stack of review copies next to her desk. This is a request to a warehouse for an older title, and the older title is a humdinger, and the paperback is significantly better looking than the hardcover was. This is Essex Dogs by Dan Jones, his debut work of historical fiction. Dan Jones is, of course, a published and best-selling and beloved and very popular historian. And he decided to write the first book. This was the first book in a trilogy of historical novels set during the 100 Years' War, during the English invasion of France. And I did a read-along. I did a multi-part buddy read of this with Micah Cummins when Essex Dogs was brand new. In fact, I think we started that read-along, that buddy read, or whatever you want to call it, before the book was actually out in America. And the sequel to Essex Dogs came out, was published yesterday here in the U.S., Wolves of Winter. And I've read it twice. I'm about ready to run my review of it. This thing must be covered in reviews. Yes, oh my. Let's take a look and see. Oh yes, okay. Tons and tons and tons of reviews. Great. All right, well, it deserves them, because this is really, really good. It has drawbacks, but it's ridiculous even to mention them, because Dan Jones knows better than anybody what the drawbacks are. He is writing a very specific kind of book. This is historical action adventure, which almost nobody writes anymore. Claude Ingleton has a blurb on here. Bernard Cornwell will do those. Almost nobody does it, and certainly not with this kind of energy. We talk about historical fiction on this channel all the time, and one of the elements involved in reading historical fiction, one of the things you need to know if you are a reader of historical fiction, or if you only know what bugs you, you have to know how accurate the author is. Well, you're not going to have to worry about that with Dan Jones. He's not going to get the wrong stirrup. He's not going to get the wrong weapon, because this is his field. The other thing you have to worry about is how anachronistic the author is going to be. And it's a mistake to think that anachronisms will be accidents. In a case like this, the tone of Essex Dogs is very anachronistic. It is the 21st century. And that is obviously a very conscious decision on the part of the author. The Essex Dogs themselves is a group of Englishmen who know each other. They've saved each other's lives. They hang together. They are the inevitable phrase, band of brothers, hardened mercenaries that are now making landfall in France. The opening scene is very, very much meant to recall D-Day. It's meant to recall that harrowing opening sequence to Saving Private Ryan. And then it moves on from there. We follow the dogs as they go throughout from one engagement to another. And when you are reading about them, their leader and all their various different figures, two things will be happening to you simultaneously if you're an open-minded reader. One is that you will be noticing that they don't think or talk anything like they would. They don't take religion seriously. It would be the only thing on their mind, but they don't take it seriously at all. They don't consider it in any way. They are cynical and biting in a way that I'm sure that people were cynical and biting during 100 years war. No better time to be either of those things. But they wouldn't have been so in 21st century terms, and the Essex Dogs are. But you'll also be noticing how incredibly fun it is to read, which, again, is no accident. That takes a huge amount of work. So now this is great, I have the paperback of Essex Dogs to go right along with what I'm assuming any day now will be the finished copy of Wolves of Winter, which is, I can attest to here. I don't want to spoil my review, but it's a heck of a book. There's no drop off here. When you're dealing with a trilogy like this, there's no sophomore slump or anything like that. It's just tremendous fun to read. It is, to use a hackneyed old phrase, an unbelievable page turner. And now I have this lovely paperback of the first one. That's great. That's fantastic. All right, now we'll do the box, and then we'll be done. Of course, the perfect capstone here would be if this box was the finished copy of Wolves of Winter. That would be terrific. I don't think there's much chance of it, but what have we got here? Oh, okay, no, it's not, but still, always a good day to hear from the great folks at Princeton University Press. So this comes out in late February 27th. This is a leap year, so we have 29 days in February, but that's right at the end, so I don't have to worry about it, but I might not have to worry about it anyway, because it strikes me as a David Murphy kind of book. It strikes me as something I would send out rather than try to deal with myself. This is by Mark William Palin, and it's called Pax Economica, Left-Wing Visions for a Free Trade World. Yeah, it's probably a David Murphy book. So it'll probably go out to him. I'll put this in the mail next time I'm out and about. Today, free trade is often associated with right-wing free marketers. In this book, the author shows that free trade and globalization, in fact, have roots in 19th century left-wing politics. In this counter-history of an idea, the author explores how, beginning in the 1840s, left-wing globalists is no non-toxic way to use that phrase, that word. You have to come up with a different word, and you know that. Became the leaders of the peace and anti-imperialist movements of their age. By the early 20th century, an unlikely alliance of liberal radicals, socialist internationalists, feminists, and Christians envisioned free trade as essential for a prosperous and peaceful world order. Of course, this vision was at odds with the era's strong predilection for nationalism, protectionism, geopolitical conflict, and colonial expansion. The author reveals how, for some of its most radical left-wing adherents, free trade represented a hard-nosed critique of imperialism, militarism, and war. Okay, I guarantee just from that plot summary alone, David understands more about this book than I would understand if I actually read it from cover to cover. Those who don't know who I'm talking about, David Murphy, in eons past, about 30 years ago, used to have a BookTube channel. He's an econ wonk. I tend to send him economic stuff rather than try for it myself, because every once in a while I get a review out of them, and they're always great. I will try again with this. And the author is a historian at the University of Exeter. And he's written one other book also on the history of free trade in the 1840s. Okay, so great. Fantastic. Don't know that I will commit to this one, but the others, absolutely. So we have Pax Economica, heck of a title. We have Essex Dogs, with this lovely, it's a banner. It's a cloth banner instead of just the words on a background in the paperback. Wonderful. Fantastic. Then we have Infectious Generosity. Learn how to worth spread like there's no tomorrow. And 2 works of translation. Goodnight Tokyo, about Tokyo late at night, and the other profile about the evils of social media. Fantastic. Great. All right, so that is the mail. Could not have gone better. Lots to dig into here, and a few things to chuck onto the lower shelves of the work bookcase. I'm not going to bother putting the January release. I'm not going to bother even putting it near that bookcase. I'll just put it on a pile of active work. I'll read it tonight and see if it's worth a review. But otherwise, no. I'm not going to have a January book mess up my work after I worked so hard on that bookcase. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.